first of all, I'm gonna start kind of after my time in adolescent treatment, and I tried to build my village through my youth group and my youth pastors, which I lived with for a little bit. And social support was a challenge for me, but it pushed me to have people around and not isolate so much. And through that I met someone that I would call my best friend, and I never really refer to anybody as my best friend, but this particular girl was really special to me. And she was someone who didn't have an eating disorder, but understood things really well, and understood difficult family dynamics and challenges that come with just life growing up in a relatively conservative Protestant family. And she really brought out some parts of me that I had lost throughout childhood and adolescence, and it was such a relief to finally just have someone I can goof around with. And I may have been the one that suggested a lot of the adventures we went on, but that's okay. I have a lot of good memories with her, and she was always there for me during any stays at Homewood, and throughout any kind of one-off hospital stays. And I did learn some things, some helps through that, some DBT skills mainly. And then the next thing that really helped me is going back to school and being motivated to do that, even though after my friend briefly after I started school, she tragically killed herself, and she had her own difficulties. And that served as motivation almost to keep me going, and just a moderate level of symptoms. And after gaining different experiences in nursing, I knew that the medical aspects of it were what kept my brain going, and I'm still fascinated by neurology and psychiatry and want to go into that area. And I have nursing preceptors that are very encouraging, and even more so since leaving. But that was a big help, knowing that I could be successful at something even though it took me twice as long. But the dean of practical nursing, the coordinator, she welcomed me back and just gave me a spot almost like the week's notice, even though there's problems with the registrar, so that meant a lot. And but after my practice and enjoying the medical parts, I knew my heart lay in mental health, and to this day I refuse to let my experience go to waste, simply because in so many ways I want to move on and identify as someone more than an eating disorder, which I am. Yet I had absolutely no idea how entrenched things still were. And I believed that since I did well, I'd land a job, and this wasn't the case. It's hard as a new grad for anyone, and from an outsider's perspective, I could have had the worst sort of relapse if I was ever deemed in recovery. It's probably one of the times I've been most fearful for my physical health, and just came almost totally tapped out, mentally, just prepared to go. And but as long as I'm still breathing, I refuse to let an eating disorder kill me. And motivation waxes and wanes, and I would just say that I feel I have had a lot of people support me on this journey, and many well-meaning people, many people that haven't known how to help and have seen things as kind of a spiritual problem, and I felt very minimized by that, so that was definitely a hindrance. And yet there's also been fabulous people from church backgrounds who have recognized that there's underlying medical issues, and that's perfectly fine as long as I'm making an effort to work away and change things. And unfortunately, there's been complications, hindrance-wise, medication-wise, and side effects that I have had to work on, I guess, more recently, in more recent years. As much as traditional inpatient settings have been helpful in some ways, being on a medication lamotrigine has been very helpful, as well as repetitive transcranial magnetic stimulation, RTMS. You can Google that one. It's really an up-and-coming field in neurology, and it's sort of stopped those behaviors enough that I feel a little bit more in control. It's still not good, but it's given me a little bit of hope. And another help is just simply being able to work on recovery as an adult. It makes me feel more empowered, and I had one social worker call it an empowered anger stance, which is the way I feel I have to attack eating disorder. And I have a mascot, my T-Rex, which has been with me for several years. I refuse to call him eating disorder or anything, but Rex, T-Rex, it's kind of motivational, just the way he stands. He's kind of like this. Also, help has been having my artwork as an outlet, connecting with the medic team at Toronto General, just having someone I can check in with weekly. Helpful. The financial support that I've been able to receive, I'm very grateful for. That's been a big relief as far as paying the tax goals, because it's too much to handle working at the moment. I just try and contribute to society in whatever way I can, and that helps me too. And part of that's been volunteering at CMHA, writing articles for the Mighty, public speaking, and using any DBT skills, grounding, sensory stuff. It's possible that I am on an end of the autism spectrum, so that might be partly why those types of things help me more than others. A hindrance, huge one, and this is one I want to address in the system in general, is the ability to concentrate, because in adolescent treatment, there's such a focus to finish schoolwork that you really don't get any support for your eating disorder, really, besides meal support, which is not all that supportive because it's not up to you so much. And in the adult system, I would say the cognitive behavioral tools were challenging, and for this reason, one of my big suggestions for treatment world at large is that anyone that's had sort of for any length of time has had some effect on their cognitive abilities, and so that they need something like a quick stay on a medical unit before they're able to process anything in a group, and therefore be unable to utilize tools that are being provided. You can't blame that person for it if their brain is so starved. And I could name many hindrances. Mainly some of them are internal depressive episodes. And let's move on to the successes. So my successes include in recognizing progress, no matter how small. I've got a gratitude jar trying to keep on going, and it's partly things I've achieved and partly just things that I feel like I've been blessed with, people that have done little things for me. And a huge success for me was finishing high school. Never thought that would be hard. You go into high school with 90s and you're leaving with 60s because of the medication. Sorry, let's go back to hindrances. Finishing nursing school was a success. I guess I'd like to focus on the recent ones, which are developing as a self-taught artist, paying down credit card debt. That's a problem with inching and purging. You would have no idea how bad that can get. Thankfully, there's people that have had it worse. Finding housing in Toronto. I have been very blessed to have had connections that way. And one of my hopes is Tanya through that. He's been able to coordinate to find me a decent place. And I guess acknowledging myself that I need to be a city kid. I have to move to where the most support are, and I don't feel like I'm all that ill or like really deserving of any support, but I think my ultimate success this past year has been keeping myself alive and recalling the poor quality of life that I had when I was at a weight and shape that was and is much mentally safer for me. I'm finishing RTMS despite its ups and downs, and that was coupled with rebound effects from self-medicating a depression. Getting connected with NEED as a volunteer has been a positive and a success. And when it comes to failures, it truly feels like my life has been a failure in many ways. It's very difficult to process being 28, not having a master's degree like I would like to right now. I've got a list. So many things the eating disorder has led to I never would have imagined. Many I'm not willing to disclose publicly. It also feels like a failure to be on disability when so many people have recognized that I'm capable in so many ways. But like anyone, I think we all have our deficits and try to compensate the best that we can. When it comes to who has been the most helpful and why, in the midst of all this madness, I've been very blessed to have family support. My best friend was a big support, and for my sanity, I don't think I have maybe yet fully come to terms with how much she meant to me. The big one is my friend and mentor Tracy, and she's been through a lot of pain, and she continues to be a source of life for so many people. One of the most memorable things she did for me while I was enduring a lengthy stay on a general psych ward was she asked me what she could do for me, and I responded with, "Help me untangle this ball of yarn," because all I did was knit when I was allowed to have my needles, and she more than willingly obliged and likely spent over an hour on it, and later told me that it was quite a chore. And there are a few comments that will always stick with me, and any comments from healthcare professionals, they particularly encourage me in my ability to contribute to that field while acknowledging my humanity. So both those aspects, those comments mean a lot. And so often the eating disorder makes me feel like an unruly animal more than a human. So I'll start off with one. By a few years ago, I had a family physician at South Lake, Dr. Bourne, and she acknowledged the depth of my pain. She took me seriously from a physical standpoint as well as psychological when I didn't see how badly I was treating myself. When I returned to her briefly, for the few months I qualified due to my age for outpatient assistance, I entered her office and said something along the lines of, "You're lovely and all, but I'm so sorry I have to see you again." And her response was that it happens, and she commented she sees eating disorder patients as the walking wounded. And then as I was about to leave, she said to me the most profound yet simple thing, you're human. And I left with hope that day. And when I fast forward to my last inpatient stay at Toronto General, and in an education group I expressed how frustrating it was to have to return to help. And Dr. Woodside, he assured me that every time I learned something, and I keep coming back. And to him, that was a strength, not a weakness. He told me about a patient of his who was almost 40, finishing med school, and yet had been in intensive treatment multiple times. Thinking about achieving that kind of success I'd like, not necessarily med school, but no matter how long it takes, that gives me hope. It's also a reason why I may never have kids and be a chronic student, but I'm okay as long as I'm doing something that I love. And anyway,